Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 13 of the Justin Palmer Show. Today's guest is Cyril Morel, the original unofficial Prince of Seychelles. If you don't know where it is, look it up on a map. I didn't know where it was either when I first met him over a decade and a half ago. Cyril is an incredible human being. He's worked at the UN. He has always had the light within him and this deep connection to the universe. I don't know how else to put it. He and I both felt that from the very beginning when we met, and we met in a very intense way for two young dudes, where we were given an assignment by an honors professor to read the battle scene between Hector and Achilles in a epic called the Iliad. So we just talked. It was episode number 13. That's both of our lucky numbers. I wouldn't even think about having anybody else on for episode number 13. Check it out. I hope you guys enjoy. And always shout out to Chris Williams, the man behind the scenes that makes the magic happen in this digital universe.
It's the Justin Palmer Show. Here we go. Woo!
Here we go. Lucky episode number 13.
I got number 13 tatted on my neck. Yeah, nah, of course. I'm keeping it PG-13.
I was speaking of that.
Yeah.
I was watching The Karate Kid with the kids, which is PG. The original, the OG Karate Kid, not the remake with Will Smith's kid, like the Ralph Macchio.
Right. Yeah.
They curse
Sidebar.
so much. Yeah.
Cobra Kai on YouTube is meant for you.
Really?
Yeah. Cobra Kai is a continuation of the same actors now at their age, where they resume the story of the Karate Kid.
Okay.
But keep going.
No. I love that the PG ratings used to be so lax, where they were calling each other assholes and like saying a lot. It was actually a lot of cursing.
And they're not like that anymore. I mean, I don't watch PG movies. So.
No, PG is like you can't have any curse word. I mean, that's kind of a reflection of the times, if you think about it.
Well, what times, right? Because currently things are extra sensitive, but PG may be like a couple of years ago. You know, millennials in general might be a little bit softer, right? And then Gen Z, potentially a little softer than that, right?
Which one is Gen Z?
They're the ones like the younger. I think after the ones who are born after 82, which is a cutoff for millennials.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Wait.
Yeah.
No, the cutoff for millennials is like 86 or something, 87, isn't it?
No, it's actually either 82 or 84. I know you're an 82 baby.
I'm 82, bro. I'm definitely not millennial.
Some consider that a millennial, but definitely 84 is like officially, like all parties agree at least 84. Some parties agree 82. Yeah, because this is really a science, right?
Yeah, I mean, fuck those parties. 82 is carved out.
Well, I think you're a Xennial, which is that
which is not Z generation. It's just a gap.
No, Xennials are like special breeds, the ones that kind of missed the technological boom. Right.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
That explains why I put like 90 hours into figuring out how to set up this podcast.
Yeah. We're 2 years apart and it took me 15 seconds to set it up. Yeah.
It's probably because you're a millennial.
It's definitely because I'm a millennial. I was an OG tech nerd. So in high school, I took on all the new technologies. Like I went from 36K modem to 56K modem to DSL to cable, which I believe it was RCN back then, which was a low level cable. Then I went to Time Warner. This is all in New York. Time Warner cable. And then Time Warner got outdone by, I forgot who it was. Was it Verizon? Yeah, Verizon came in with Fios eventually, right?
Yeah.
And I used to be on Verizon DSL, which was slower than Time Warner. So it's all this, and they took a long time to build infrastructure. complete sidebar here. But yeah,
What were you doing on the entire podcast is a sidebar.
it's gonna be a sidebar. Yeah,
Yeah, this is lucky number 13, bro.
dude, let's just go hard. Let's just go hard. Let's go hard in the paint.
Dude, we're going hard in the Bill Lambier style.
That's right. That's right.
Coming out with teeth in your elbows.
Oh my God.
No, well, 3656K for anybody, for a current modern person, that I have to explain that. It's like when your phone jams and crashes.
Yeah. So the way I look at a 56K modem, so this is what it is. A 56K modem, which is, I was on 36K for a very short period. It was like a free, I was like basically trying to find a way to get free internet, and it was 36K. But 56K was a standard for, at least in my household, for maybe a couple months, right? But 56K meant you could download at 5.6 kilobytes per second, which I don't know if people understand what that is, because we're now downloading at megabytes per second. But it's very, very slow. You couldn't stream music. You couldn't to download MP3s back then through Napster, which I don't know if anyone will know what that is. But to download a song would take you like maybe an hour. I can't remember. It took forever. So you have to be really specific about the music.
Yeah.
What
was your primary use of the internet at that time? Like, what were you doing?
While I was learning, right? Because I didn't know what it was originally. So when I got 56K, I was just browsing the internet, Alta Vista, which used to be the Google of today, right? Just searching for stuff. I had interest in games and just looking stuff up, right? And then music became like a primary focus, and then movies. So music, movies, and then once I got DSL and then cable, I started doing like DVDs, regular DVDs, not fancy Blu-rays, and then PC games, and like I think PS2 games. I used to like bootleg them. I ran a business doing illicit software. Statute of limitations.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. Yeah. So
plus this is just a reflection of the current space and time. Anything after recording this, it doesn't exist.
I mean, dude, back then Napster was, everyone was on it. Everyone was like basically, stealing proprietary, if you want to call it stealing, but they were taking stuff for free. Yeah. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. I went deep underground on that stuff. I was on Hotline.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Like I was doing like peer-to-peer private networks, like just joining private groups, and like doing a sharing community.
Sounds like what the dark web is today.
It might be. I've never been on the dark web.
Me neither.
So I don't really know what it's like, but I hear it's pretty fucked up. Like you can buy
I kind of picture it like
and people, humans. Yeah, you can like do all kinds of really nasty shit.
I was gonna say kind of like my visualization of it is like the equivalent of people living under a bridge in like urban cities. Like that's like the visualization that I get when I hear dark web, which is probably even way worse than that.
Oh my God. I mean, it could be a virtual version of that. No, it's worse than that, dude. Living on the bridge is home. You just, like you have a community there and like you kind of band together, right? Based on what I've seen in the movies, because I've never lived under the bridge, nor have I interacted with people under a bridge, except for trolls virtually. But that's a nerd joke.
You said that with such sincerity.
Oh, it's true. I love trolls.
What I wanted to ask I haven't reflected on this in a while. I wasn't a big user of the internet. I mostly used it for like email communication when it first came out, which is around the same time.
Yeah. You were not on AOL? Like
no,
AIM?
I was, but we had one computer that was like my mom's boyfriend's at the time.
Yeah.
And he kind of monopolized it and he was very into it. He was very into like communicating with his distant relatives and like starting to map out his family tree. And that was kind of my first exposure to it.
Got it. Okay.
I wasn't really interested in the computer. I was out with my friends, like hanging out, but one thing, Napster is an interesting discussion because it started something it's been almost 30 years since Napster came out. something, 20 years, somewhere in that
Yeah,
range. This isn't.
yeah. I think
Don't
2000s.
look here for
Yeah,
facts. Yeah,
yeah,
that reflecting on it after 2 decades, it was actually a positive thing in my mind.
oh yeah, absolutely. Disruptive innovation, right? Like this is what technology does. Like you wouldn't have Spotify and all the other streaming services without a Napster, right?
Yeah,
And all
true.
its derivatives. So it's. I mean, I'm a big fan of tech disruption, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I understand the implications that it hurts some people, right? You can kill jobs, especially when Skynet takes over and humans are no longer needed. But it does create. I mean, it creates new ways to live, and to, ideally, it creates to improve efficiency in human life, and makes it so we do less mundane and routine things, and it makes our lives easier, right? There's a downside to technological innovation, obviously, if you use it for the
Yeah.
long, if you use it with dark energy, right, or negative energy. But generally speaking, I think a lot of the creators have good intentions, or at least they don't plan. They're not trying to use it to, DDoS people, like all the tech guys, right, who create innovation in the space. So
Yeah. It's interesting that you said it's meant to do mundane things. And I think in a lot of ways it is. I agree with you. I also think that as a society, we've allowed technology to continue to create even more mundane things for humans. Like humans haven't transitioned from what you can actually leverage from technology, and there's still this like grasp on trying to do the mundane. The example that I'm thinking of, I mean, this is like deeply philosophical, and what I look at is like manufacturing.
mm-hmm.
What used to take, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 people on the production lines now takes 2 highly skilled people and a lot of technology and machines. And what I'm thinking of is when we went to Katera, and they were in the process of mapping out Katera. For those of you who don't know, Katera is as close to a modern age construction company that you can get, right? I guess is the way that I would put it.
I mean, you got modern age. You have to explain that a little more. I mean, they're automating.
They were using technology more than any contractor that I've seen.
Yeah.
To prefabricate.
Yeah.
And so they're using a lot of machines, and there wasn't very many people on the floor. And I've just from reading and seeing, I see that in a lot of industries. But what that does is create this massive re-education gap in the people that were doing that, because it's so hard for people to change. They're like, I'm a, windshield manufacturer at the auto plant. That's what I do. And then there's like these unions and all this thing, and it gets layered up in society, and people don't switch that easily.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like what your view is on that, like that destructive component. Is that good or bad?
I mean, it's neither, right? I've never spent the time to do a cost benefit analysis, or just, see the economic impact of gains versus, job losses versus job gains, positive externalities versus negative externalities. I've never really, spent the time to evaluate that, but anything that creates progress, in my view, is good, right? And it requires humans to adapt. And if you're unwilling, because everyone is able to adapt, if you're unwilling to put in the effort, or you have, challenges, systematic challenges that are in your way to facilitate adaptation or change or progress, then that needs to be addressed, right? Either by a third party or another person, government intervention, subsidies, whatever you want to call it, or, friends and like family, people lending a hand, So my view in general is technology is good, right? Until you have it in the hands of a bad person, right? It's a tool, just like anything else. A knife is good until you stab someone with it, right? It's good when you're using it to make food, to cut trees. Well, not really a knife, but you know what I mean, a sharp blade.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put, tools in the wrong hands of people, or people who have ill intentions, then that can create, pretty bad things.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's how I kind of see it.
I wanted to add one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the UN as a tool, and it's a good segue to it.
Oh God!
Because I remember when we were in college, Cyril and I went to college together, had a short stint living together till that building went up in flames.
It did go up in flames.
Literally.
I don't think the universe could handle the two of us living together.
I think it was a sign.
It was a sign.
It's like, stay close, but not too close.
That's right.
But you were always, from my perspective, you were an idealist in the context of human progress, and you were very fixated. It was so interesting for me to experience what I was pursuing as, growing up relatively humble in America, and that pursuit of just pure individual success. And then in having deep philosophical conversations with you, I mean, we didn't really know what the fuck we were talking about because we were in our 20s, but we were still very philosophical. Yeah. And you had this very global, positive, service-oriented mindset. You always had that. Yeah. And so I'm curious, how that developed within you and how it evolved as you started to work for the UN.
That's a loaded question. Okay. I don't really know how it developed in me, to be honest, right? I was never, growing up, I was not. So Seychelles, I don't know if you mentioned that in your intro of me, but I'm from Seychelles, which is an archipelago off the east coast of Africa. I grew up, in a country, or on the main island, in a place where there wasn't much, right? I mean, I wasn't poor, right? But there wasn't much for a long time, right? And I entertained myself with my uncle. I had an uncle, the youngest of my mother's siblings, who was like an older brother to me, right? And we just, made do with what we had. So, played with sticks, made bows and arrows, created fake swords, created basketball hoops with bicycle tires, and, basically played outside a lot, right? And I didn't see much prosperity until I left Seychelles and I went to Belgium for a year, and then I came to the United States. It was more when I came to the US that I was like, holy shit, this world is completely different. It was a massive shock, especially as a 14-year-old, right? Or a 13-year-old. But I did, and I still do to this day, recognize that the disparity between the haves and the have-nots, right? And I think seeing that disparity kind of just kept it awakened me, and it made me feel like something could be done to reduce that gap, right? And then I studied economics in high school. I did AP economics, and then I did it again in college. Well, I continued in college. And then I started learning standard, classical economic models, which I can't really say really work, but whatever. That's a different conversation. But, in classical economic theory, there's a conversation of there are ways to reduce the gap, right? And one of the ways is to transfer technologies, right? Have lower income nations or developing nations adopt new technologies, right? Which, according to economics, create massive positive externalities and are the long-term sustenance of economic growth, if you will, right? Technological innovation, which also makes sense. And that's, I think, I don't want to say it's immutable, but I think it's a big part of economic growth, right?
Absolutely.
And progress in societies. I mean, now we talk technology, but in general, it's just innovation. Technology is just the most recent, a digitized version of human innovation. So innovation creates progress. So transferring or applying technologies to developing nations would, in a way, or at least in theory, help themselves grow. So I that's a long way of answering, but the idea was that I was aware of the disparities, and the more I studied, the more I realized that was something you could do, right? And that's kind of why I went into the UN, right? Because I thought it would be the biggest scale where you could make the largest impact. I wanted to save the world as a college graduate, so I joined it bright-eyed and really thought that I could. I remember there was I think it was a UNESCO or ECOSOC. ECOSOC is a chamber, or economic and I can't remember it. Anyway, but like a chamber of the United Nations Secretariat where like they have all the conferences regarding economic principles and economic development. And then of course there's UNDP and all that stuff. So there were a lot of departments and agencies within the UN whose mandate was to help developing nations. And I thought, going in there, I'm like, I'll just get in there and find a way to do that, right? Bring technology over to smaller countries, especially Africa, because for me, Africa and Seychelles are obviously parts of Asia, and the South Americas, and even the United States, right? There's poverty everywhere, but there's a lot of absolute global poverty in Africa, and I wanted to find a way to reduce that by implementing better technologies and doing that through the United Nations.
Yeah, that's surprisingly. I mean. Surprisingly well-rounded, and we've talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
Between over the years, over the decade plus, almost decade and a half that we've known each other. I'm just realizing how much your experience of starting life in Seychelles, transitioning to Europe, and then coming to the US just gave you such a global perspective. It gave you such a wide snapshot of the realities that exist and the different realms of economic prosperity. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I didn't fully process it until you just explained that. Which is great.
We learn something about each other every day, right?
Every day, man.
Including on a public forum. But also, a big part of it, like I believe in, it's gonna sound really silly, but like justice, right? Like I feel like everyone should have a chance at a healthy life, right? Kids should not be dying from malaria,
right?
Or any kind of waterborne diseases in Africa. Like there's so many issues in this world, and I feel like it's unjust. And when I was younger, I was bullied, right? And I remember
in Seychelles, in Belgium, in New York, everywhere.
Seychelles, when I was really small, when I wasn't 6'3", I was bullied. And the guy who used to bully me was I didn't understand why, right? So I didn't understand how somebody can do wrong to somebody else for no reason. Like that never really computed in my head. And like, as it was happening, I was like, okay, this is just weird. So it happened a couple of times, and then it became something that I think it became habitual. I'm not sure how long it lasted, but eventually I knocked him out. But, like I had to fight back. That's what you do with bullies, right? So, but it left this taste in my mouth. I'm like, when I see something that's just unjust, or you can make a situation better for somebody else, I kind of implicitly take it on, right? So my brain just automatically, because I think it's been coded in my head, is fix the injustice, right? Mm-hmm. So social injustices, or injustices, however you pronounce that, or however you say that.
However you want.
Yeah. So that when I see stuff like that, it lights me up a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm very passionate about stuff like that. Still am, right? I mean, I didn't lose my. I'll answer your second half of your question about the UN. I didn't lose my passion for making for improving the world or making an impact on the world. I mean, we did that at Synapse. Like that's part of the reason why we work together, right? So doing real estate differently, but I don't like standing by and looking at bad things happen, or I do stand by. I don't like it makes me feel a certain way, right? So that I like to do something about it. So that's what I try to do. And when I joined the UN, obviously the UN is a massive organization, and I can't tell you it does a lot of good or it doesn't do a lot of good, right? I can't measure its impact on the world. But I do, like, deep down, I feel like it does at least some good. I felt at the time when I was there after 4 years, well, actually after a year, and over the year, like the following 3 years after that, it reinforced my notion that it was just not doing what it was supposed to, that it set out to do, right? And I felt like people didn't really care about what the UN stood for that worked there. Not everyone, but some people, right? And it left a bad taste in my mouth, so I decided that I wanted to leave and, I'd find a way to make an impact in a different way. So I left. But, I was also I was young, I was very passionate, I was very impatient, right? And I was very judgmental. Like, people do different jobs for different reasons, right? I didn't really put myself in anyone else's shoes. So the few people that maybe I interacted with at UN that, disappointed me or, I judged, I may have done so unfairly, right? So my view back then was definitely skewed by my own biases that were not necessarily, I'd argue that I don't think they were potentially righteous, right? So
yeah, I mean, you're aggregating at that age, the way that society is structured, you're aggregating experience in the life and professional realm. And it's hard to, I mean, I totally resonate with what you're saying. Everything that you say, or that you just said, applies to my life as well. Like going through and working at a private equity fund, or even the earlier jobs that I did, right? I mean, judging people that I worked around in like a body shop and a warehouse was how I motivated myself to change that situation.
Yeah.
Right. And it was very immature at the time in the way that I experienced it. However, the good that came out of it was far beyond any of the negative externalities from that experience. Right. And
right.
It led me to pursue a different path in life. And I feel that way in your journey too, because I remember when you left the UN and there was some bitterness within you.
Yeah.
That was my observation. And it's been amazing to see you stick with that ethos of the spirit of helping other people. And it really is who you are.
Thank you. That's also very kind. Yeah, I mean, look, I was definitely bitter, right? But my bitterness or my anger, whatever it was, that the negativity that was stewing within me was not just because of the UN. It was also because, I did a lot of good at the UN. Like I took on, especially the last 2 years I was there, I took on a massive project that I ran. And I was partly bitter because I was not given the financial recognition, if you will, right? I wasn't getting compensated for the level of work that I was performing because of its bureaucraticness, right? In the end, they tried to keep me, and they would have given me probably anything I wanted, but I was over it. But yeah, I was just, like, bitterness comes from within, man. Like, it's a reflection of your own state, right? Like, it's not the UN that made me bitter. It was me that made me bitter, right? And like, I didn't accept my own ability to control my life, right? So I'd blame the UN, right? Like, I'm a big believer that whenever there's any kind of negative feeling, it's usually a reflection of, yourself. So now I can say that because I read a lot and I meditate and all that stuff, and I spend a lot of time working on myself. But back then I didn't have that kind of view. But I did. It was simplistic, the way I was reacting to the UN, and and it's a good thing. Like, it's almost like I had to be relatively basic and primitive in my thought process, and it gave me rage. It gave me like a fire. It made me like, me implicitly judging everyone else as dumber than me, because I was never rude to anyone, right? And thinking that I was better than the rest of the people I worked with, led to me being where I am today, right? So I can look at it and say it's not good to judge. Hindsight is 20/20. But recognizing that in reality, it was just like I had something more to offer to myself and to maybe the world, as opposed to being like the UN doesn't deserve me, right? Direct, like just being able to just want more out of yourself, right? Which is what I think it came out of. I mean, what it comes down to, led me to pursue this crazy path I went on, leaving the UN, all the risk I took, right? So, and it makes the journey that much sweeter. I still have a lot of love for the UN. I look back on it now and I'm like, that place is fucking dope, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
you were very myopic in your pursuit of your first job out of college to be at the UN. I remember
it's the only place I applied.
That's right.
Yeah. And I was, like, I applied for a position and they put me in a boiler room and made me a water boy. It was very humbling. And then they told me to do it for 2 years. I'm like, look, nothing wrong with water boys, right? But I worked very hard to be, I did very well in college and I worked really hard. And, I expected to get what I was interviewed for. That expectation was not met and it left, a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth. But, the higher ups that saw me and I spoke to, recognized that maybe I wasn't supposed to be putting water on podiums. But it was great, man. Like I learned a lot about myself doing that. And about others who were trying to keep me, like, they're like, no, you should stick around and be a water boy for 2 years and then you'll move on. I'm like, what? I don't understand the system. What does that mean? Why would I do that? I don't want to put water on podiums. They're like, well, that's how it is. I'm like,
yeah,
that doesn't work with me. That's how it is.
What was it like for you to start to let go of external rewards and recognition? When did that start happening for you?
I don't know, man. External reward. I mean, another little
outcome,
question.
Letting go of the outcome. Sorry. Sorry, there was a little lag, so I think I talked over you.
You were saying, yeah, so like external validation, I think in college, I started letting go of that. I started reading a lot of Eastern philosophy. So I went inward. I used to be very, extroverted and like just explosive as a person. Like I'd mouth off and I'd be very angry. Like whenever I didn't agree with someone, I just like let them know. And, but I started doing a lot of reading, of like, especially Japanese samurai philosophy, right? The Bushido. So that kind of started like balancing me out a little bit. And I started thinking differently about extrinsic rewards, right? And like just people getting approval of others. So obviously I'm still growing and you're vain and like I had all these things, like you want to look good while playing basketball. You want to attract X, X, Y, and Z, whatever. So I had not completely let go of the external focus, but I think I started then, and you never really fully complete that journey. And I think that's a journey of enlightenment, right? Like you're pursuing higher consciousness. But I'd argue that, like in the last year, ever since I started meditating, it made a huge difference. Like I really don't, it's hard for me. Like I don't really think about how I'm perceived, right? I do to the extent that I don't want to hurt others, right? So I try not to, like I check myself. So like, okay, well, am I being conscientious? Because I could say something that, is opinionated and I mean it even kindly, right? Like I use it, like I'll say something about a political candidate and, that could offend a friend of mine or something, like, and I think about that, while I'm doing it. I'm trying to be conscientious, but generally speaking, more and more I care less about how I'm perceived, right? And external rewards, if you talk about money, has never really motivated me, right? I mean, you remember in college, I was like, people would tell me like, get a job at an investment bank, and like you have the grades, like your magna cum laude, all that stuff, like you can get the best jobs, go and apply, like what you did, right? Like basically, I was like, no, it's not for me. Like I didn't really care about money. I cared about impact, right? But I mean, I got older and I realized like, I've been broke. I went broke, right? And I realized that at some point, I'm like, my idealism needs to somewhat, I don't want to say be curbed, but I need to also be realistic, and I need to be a little more thoughtful sometimes. And I remember when I was broke and I was in a little bit of a dark place because I just separated from my first company that I helped create. I was like, this is, like, it doesn't feel right. It's not fulfilling, and not having money in the society, in the world I live, especially I had never not had money because the UN paid well also, it turns out. And I lived comfortably, and I didn't seek too much, and I had exactly what I needed. I've always had exactly what I needed. So maybe going broke is exactly what I needed, right? But then I realized like I needed to focus a little bit on finding money, right? And like working towards building some kind of financial security. And I think once you get a baseline, at least for me, once I get my baseline, like I don't even think about it anymore, right? Like right now, I'm very content with who I am in life. I'm not, I don't swim in cash at all, but I'm very happy, and I give back a lot. So
Yeah,
once
you
you
give
get
a lot.
Yeah, and once you do that, it's once you get to that point and you focus on contribution, I think the external really kind of fades away because you're really living more internally, right?
Yeah.
And like it's more like you're vibing on the whole, like we are all one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
Thanks, man.
true.
Like, yeah, you're asking some heavy questions, bro.
Well, I think this is meant to be a deeply philosophical. I mean, we're two philosophers. We always have been, right? From literally from the day we met, when Miss Gluck gave us that assignment to read the fight scene from the Iliad, and we spent like 6 hours in the library just talking and not even practicing for reading. It was clear that we both had that philosophical mind of just wanting to understand more about the world and the universe, wanting to talk about it, wanting to ideate freely. Yeah. And I enjoy, I mean, you and I have the opportunity to sync up almost every day. Yeah. And I enjoy the ideations and the philosophy that comes out of that. Right.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're gems, bro. I mean, every single call we have, it could be a podcast, right?
For sure. Sure.
It's a get. Yeah, I'm truly blessed to have you in my life that we can have those conversations, right?
Likewise, man. I appreciate that. You're gonna make me cry on the podcast.
You're such a little bitch.
I love you, man.
I love you too, man. Remember that time with Miss Gluck when she asked me if I did the reading for the homework assignment? And I straight up said no. This is an honors literature class. And I'm like, no, I did the Spark Notes.
Yeah, I also remember that she chastised the shit out of you for reading Spark Notes. Yeah, she was very offended.
She was like, that is really unacceptable.
Yeah, I remember that was
just being honest.
Heresy to her. No, I know. It was the right thing to do, Yeah. For many reasons, probably for yourself too in your own journey.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I kept doing Spark Notes. Some of those readings were such fucking boredoms, man.
Yeah, it was tough. When I look back, that was probably the most challenging class I had ever taken because I had I wasn't even at college level reading when I started college. Right? So like and that was my first class in New York after a big transition. And the reading assignments were they were almost too much. It would be like 40 pages of dense things every night and that was one of
Yeah.
4, 5, 6 classes.
Correct.
It was a lot.
And if I remember correctly, she broke my 4.0.
Yeah, she broke my 4.0 too.
Yeah. She broke us, bro.
Yeah, she did. But even that was like,
That's
we
good.
both needed that.
Yeah.
We both needed a little bit of chink in the armor, you know?
Like her, like the way she refuted my arguments in my papers. I'm like, this is not, no, Miss Gluck, this is not right. I was like, I don't get it. She was so harsh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I remember I had a conversation I was very concerned about my 4.0 at the time. I mean, you remember how crazy I was. Cause dude, it's hard to explain to people who I dropped out of high school and my own journey through college was a fucking outright mission to prove to myself that I was even worthy of being in an academic setting, which is totally fucked up when I look back on it.
I mean,
but dude, class,
is it? Cause it helped form, like it helped shape who you ended up being.
Yeah. Right? I have no issues with it. You know, that was the experience at the time that I recall. You know, I was very fixated on perfection. Yeah. Perfection at all cost. And that, as a person who likes to achieve things, any test of perfection is monumental in a lot of ways. For me, it was. Yeah. No, she sat down with me. I talked to her because she gave me like a C-, and I'd never gotten that in college. And I was like, oh, fuck. I'm a high school dropout. I'm fucking going and I'm gonna start like smoking weed and be like shooting heroin on the streets. Like I literally, that's where my mind went, man. I was in deep suffering state, trying to prove to myself that I could be in in society. And she sat down with me and she was like, Justin, you're gonna get an A in this class. Yeah. But it's okay to get a C on this. And I was like, oh, fuck this lady. What is she talking about? And I remember thinking about it and just that little message of like, hey, I recognize that you're working. Yeah. Recognize that there's always improvement was a gem.
That's a good point, man.
Yeah. It was a real gem. Yeah.
No, I remember like college, you know, like we have great memories, but I remember it was stressful for me too, man. I was on a full ride, so I had to maintain my grades, right? And I didn't know what the standard was. I didn't know what GPA I had to maintain. I don't think they ever told me. So I assumed, you know, if they...
It's very island style, bro.
I mean, because they rejected my scholarship originally, and then they gave it to me like 6 months later after I started acing everything. It's a long story. I'm not going to go in that path, but yeah. Okay. So but like I didn't know what the standards were. Like I didn't know what I needed to maintain. So I was like, I'm just going to get a 4.0. And I just kept it until Gluck, I think, gave me an A- or a B+. I forgot what it was. Yeah. I was like, okay, well. And then afterwards, I started hanging out with you, and you just ruined everything.
My favorite experience out of all of college was when we did I think it was a psychology, the thing that we recorded with the action figures.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah. That was one of the greatest things ever. Yeah. Oh, it is you, Red Warrior. Yeah, no, we
should publish that on YouTube.
I don't that camera, that old technology got, it was rendered obsolete. I think I don't remember what it was called actually. Now everything is digital, but back then it was like those little mini cassettes. Ah, you remember? Like, yeah, I used to film the basketball games as well. But yeah, no, dude, oh my God, that was a gem. Also, basically, it was my semester project. I had to come up with a medium or I had to give a deliverable, either a PowerPoint presentation, or it could be a video, a movie, whatever it was, or write a thesis, right? And then that would put together every psychological concept I was taught in that class, right? And I was like, oh, and it was like another one of those honors class, right? So with a bunch of really stuck-up kids, man, I was not meant for the honors program. But yeah, so we'd end up.
They weren't all stuck up. Huh? They weren't all stuck up, but a lot of them were.
A lot of them were. I mean, I'm generalizing.
Everyone was like young and entitled, you know.
bro, they were. I mean, it was. I didn't fit in that group at the time. Let's just say that. I'm speaking very loosely when I say it. Again, reflection of myself more than it is of them, right? But um, I remember that video was hilarious because we put it together in like an hour at 3 a.m. the day before it was due. And
Cyril style studying.
Yeah, I wrote the script and I was like, I need you to help like make these action figures talk and read the script. And you played it to perfection.
Hey man, give the man a microphone and the show, the show goes.
Yeah, for real, man. I'm not gonna lie, I got an A. The guy said this is the most creative. Like I can't understand what you did there. But your concepts were, you actually learned a lot in this class, and this hacker up job is a little rough around the edges, but it's incredible. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it in all my years of teaching. I'm like, oh man, thanks, bro. That's innovation
Creativity.
right there.
Creativity in its purest form.
Hey man, I think it's laziness, but yes, I think the two can
Maybe
be mutually
laziness.
inclusive. They're not. Yeah, laziness is a form of efficiency. If you
True.
if you create output, right? And if it's good output.
I'm trying to help Anna understand our son because she's like, he's just lazy. I'm like, he's not lazy. He's really efficient.
Yeah.
He is really efficient. He's like,
yeah.
We're like, Maxime, can you get your shoes on? And he's like, oh, can you just go over there and grab those shoes and bring them over to me? I'm just so tired. And she's like, he's lazy. I'm like, that is so efficient because he knows you're going to do it.
Yep. That's
got to balance it out. Yeah. I'm reading The Warrior Kid with him right now, which is Jocko's book for kids.
Oh,
which
really?
is a good. It's interesting because a lot of the philosophy. And I don't listen to Jocko.
Wait. Jocko, the guy, the seal.
Yeah, the savage. He wrote a kid's book. He actually wrote 3.
That's crazy.
He's trying. It's good. It's very. It's obviously overt as an adult to read it. I actually think his training in jiu-jitsu already has taught most of the concepts.
Yeah.
But it's good for him to see it in a different context.
Right.
And I wanted to go back to something because you mentioned you got bullied.
Yeah.
Which is it's a traumatic. I did too when I was a kid at different times, right? And all the way, being a teenager and stuff like that, I was very uncertain of myself, and a lot of that was just the situation that I was in as a kid, and not having my father present was a big factor for me, as you know.
Oh yeah.
And I'm wondering, bullying in general is terrible. But there's some element to it that, like, what it gave you in terms of your perspective is so much of a gift in the universe for you to, as a human, look at other people's situations and say, this shouldn't be, this is an injustice. I want to help. You know what I mean? Where we have this culture right now where we're trying to stomp everything out.
Yeah.
And I get that we can make improvements, but some of those things need to exist. And I'm not saying that bullying in a violent or any intense form should exist, but there is some element of, like, you have to let kids in general, or people in general, even in the workplace, because now people don't know, because we're stomping it out as a society, people don't know how to deal with conflict, which is just a reality.
Yeah, no, I get it. When you say stomp, like the intolerance, basically, of any kind of opposing view. Yeah, I mean, dude, there's a lot. Yeah, this is. I think it's a continuum, right? And whenever you have a continuum for anything, it's challenging to draw the line where a little too much has occurred, right? So I do agree that we're in a society, especially right now, where things, there's a lot of sensitivity, and a lot of that, I believe, is warranted. The sensitivity and as a result, things being stomped out, or like strong reactions or banning, whatever happens as a result of that, I kind of understand. And to me, it's like, hey, read the room, right? Like at this moment in time to me, it's okay that there might be a little bit of oversensitivity, right? Without getting specific. But once things normalize, if they normalize and if things improve, I mean, this is a very heavy conversation because you could talk about what causes sensitivities, right? And you can go down that path and see what's the source of pain that's been created, right? And then you can, that conversation will take 5 hours. But keeping it just on this level, I think you have to read the temperature, right? And see, okay, well, is it oversensitivity because, George Floyd got killed and there's a protest and people are saying all lives matter? Is that okay? Like, I personally don't think so, right? I think you read the room and know when to pick your battles. Personally, that's my opinion. 10 years from now, if somebody says all lives matter, I would hope that people would say, yes, all lives matter. We're all equal, right? And there's no systematic racism and there's no bigotry and everyone's treated as such, right? So there's no need to identify, say one group matters and then others will feel sensitive to that shit, right? But when it comes to kids, I mean, you brought up kids. Like, I think, cyberbullying is a real thing. Like, when you talk about technology, with the Instagrams and Facebook, the Twitters, like, it's so easy. The difference between what you and I went through and the generations before, because I was actually on AIM, and there was obviously, we were the first trolls, and there was cyberbullying. Fun fact, my AIM nickname was Cyber C2K. Tell me that's not a cool name, man.
That's a cool name.
Cyber
I feel like
C2K.
that should be your current Instagram handle.
Nah, the Creolito, man. No, I'm not. But no, so back then, if you bully, like, if you people knew who you were with your handle, right? So Cyber C2K everyone knew was Cyril because there were very few people online. So if you started like a cyber war and started talking shit, and somebody copied it, like screenshot it and sent it to somebody else, and like create all the drama in high school, it'll come back. Actually, there were altercations that erupted in my personal life because of that, right? But nowadays, anyone can just hide behind a keyboard, create a username, right, and start spewing venom towards people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that in kids, without developing the psychological calluses or like the strength to be able to withstand some of that stuff, and just not know how to deal with it, with that being, if you have unfiltered, I guess, exposure to the web and to people's nonsense postings, it can create snowflakes, and it can create really overly sensitive people. So maybe there is a need for moderation or moderating technological use for children. I don't know, like that's another conversation, right? Like, you as a parent, I imagine, give that a lot of thought, right? And your kids are still, I guess, I don't know, their age groups, if there is bullying or if that stuff happens yet, because I don't really know kids.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does. My kids don't have a lot of access to technologies. It's pretty limited,
Mm-hmm.
and they won't. I'm not allowing them on social media from, like, Max has an Instagram account, but I post stuff.
Yeah.
Then I don't, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't interact with it. I just set it up for him because he was interested in it, and I wanted him to kind of see what it was without wanting to. And he really has no interest because he doesn't know what it means.
Right.
He values the in-person connections.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, they do. I think for him, he got bullied really young, actually very young, like 5, 6. Yeah, like 5, 6-ish when he transitioned to a new school. And it's boys being boys, right?
Yeah.
It was a crew of boys that had been together in class for 2 years, and he was the new kid.
Yeah.
And he's such a, he's a gentle soul at the end of the day. And that was what prompted me to sign him up for jiu-jitsu. And I've watched him completely transform his level of confidence. In a 2-year span of training jiu-jitsu, he's not worried about that anymore. I can see it in him,
Right.
I mean, different contexts would probably provide different things for him if he was in a situation that where he was getting bullied, I think he would be able to handle it. And
I'm certain
I talked to them about it, right? And I think this is an important point. It's like you have to teach these kids how to stand on their own. And I think you're right. The internet, there's zero consequences to saying some terrible things. Zero. And that's not how the real world works. If you stand in front of somebody and you spew that venom, you're going to light a fire, right?
Yeah.
And you may be the fire, or you may be the victim of that fire.
Yeah.
And the probability in a violent scenario is basically 50-50, right? Yeah. For no matter how tough you think you are, the guys that train the hardest and know violence the best, they know it's a 50-50 game.
Yeah.
And when you have that element, it instantly, automatically manages your ego for you.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Some people let it go. They let it fly. Yeah. I was a hothead too at times. And I think going back to your point on like meditation and the journey goes inward. Once you start that journey, you let go of all that other stuff, where it's like, somebody can come spewing venom at me and it doesn't impact me in any way. And that's from years of meditation and introspection and reading about presence and consciousness and those things,
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I would argue that it's easier when you have your circle of your wheel of life in place, if you will, right? If we're blessed, well, we've made a good life for ourselves. You've made a good life for yourself, right? Like you have a beautiful family.
Thank you, man.
Come on. So everything, things are great. You got that aloha spirit going. You're fishing.
Sure. Yeah.
Fishing.
But you can experience that. Look, dude, I'm not going to lie. There's people here that I can see that I interact with they're in suffering state because of what's going on in Washington, D.C. or in the universe of what you were just talking about. And I chose consciously to be in the now with my family. Yeah. Put that as a priority because that's what this transition and this time is about. And it you can be anywhere. You have to do that work yourself, right? It's really, there's no shortcut around that.
There isn't. And it's probably the most worthwhile piece of work you'll ever do on yourself, right? It's the greatest journey. The journey within is the greatest adventure that exists, right? Because it never ends and it's always fun, right? You'll always learn something new and you'll continuously self-actualize. You'll keep just hitting new heights and you'll just keep finding new ways to like feel bliss, right? Which is really crazy because when I started meditating, I remember I actually saw you meditating in the office. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing, man? He doesn't know how to meditate. My judgment was just going on like, yeah, sure. And then I eventually tried it. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing, man? I don't know how to meditate. I couldn't just sit still. My mind's running 1,000 miles an hour in 5 different directions, right? So I'm just like, but then, Steve G, respect, shout out to Steve G.
Shout out.
Yeah, Steve G reminded me, he's like, look, the practice of meditation is to practice meditation. It's just, it doesn't matter if you suck at it, just do it. Create the habit, right? Build that muscle memory. And yeah, and ironically, it worked. And, I haven't missed a single day of meditation. Since he gave me that piece of advice, I don't remember, it was maybe May of last year or June, whatever it was. But yeah, like I think meditation is the single most important thing in my life, right? I place it above everything else. That and love. But yeah, meditation is love, technically. It's love for yourself and love for the divine. And then, love outwards as well, towards the most intimate of people in your life and the rest of the world. I feel very strongly about that. Like when I meditate, man, I go somewhere. It's like everything I did in my life just makes sense, and like I have no regrets in anything I've done, none. Because even the painful things you do, you learn from it, right?
Absolutely.
And meditation for me just connects me straight with the divine, right? Like it takes me to the highest level of consciousness. And not every day I'm not sitting there like I'm no guru, I'm not a yogi. I don't even do yoga. I used to. Ironically, I did yoga. I never felt meditative. I didn't get that high when I did yoga, because I did yoga as a replacement for actual physical activity that I needed to do because I'd injured my back while playing basketball. But I actually need to burn energy. So I meditate after I play basketball, or after I run. That's like the best feeling in the world. But I'm not a yogi. I'm not like a spiritual dude in that sense. Like I don't pursue a life of spirituality, if you will, but I do pursue a life of spirituality, if you will. You know what I mean?
You've always had that. I do.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. It's not in the traditional sense of going to church or associating with a religion. It's connecting with the universe.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And for me, it's I was baptized Anglican, so I like at the Church of England. So I still have, I've read books about how you identify with the divine. It doesn't matter. You could say God, Allah, you could use it, Justin, any name you want. But it's just linguistics. It's just semantics, right? It doesn't really matter. Divinity is divinity, right? When you feel it, you'll know it, right? And words will not be able to describe it, because words are human made and they're not divine, right? So you experience it at a high level of consciousness, and all religions converge. Every faith converges, right? On the highest, like when you hit that level. So it's really powerful shit.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. Like, people, like most people who know me, all my friends, like they're like, no, now they know I meditate. Like, but when they first started hearing me that, like I actually meditate, and they see me doing it, they're like, my parents, when they found out I was meditating, I went to Seychelles. They're like, every day I was meditating. They're like, okay, it's a thing. And it's completely transformed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meditation and reading, those two things, big changes in your life, man.
For sure. Isn't it wild that such relatively minor introspective things can make these compounded shifts in your consciousness that, I mean, you're right. It's an understatement. I don't even know how to explain it with words other than the transformation that you will have in your experience is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just very powerful. Yeah. And I started reading because I used to hate reading. And even today, like I can't say I love reading. I read a lot. Like I read an hour a day. I would rather play video games for an hour. Dead serious. Like I'd rather do something, or play basketball, do something unproductive or just leisure. But it feels so good, right? It's one of those things like working out. You don't always want to work out, right? But when you do it, it feels so good. Mm-hmm. Reading is working out for the mind, right? Working out is working out for the body, which houses the mind and the soul, if you want to say that. Meditation is working out for the soul, right? Mm-hmm. The spirit. So those three things for me are like the most important things when it comes to like maintaining a beautiful state of mind, right? Like, so I try. The exercise part is probably the area I'm weakest at. Like I still exercise, I still work out, I still play basketball, all that stuff. I'm not a slob, but I could definitely improve in that area. But my reading and my meditation are on point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way that you said that, where those things, it's just different elements of stretching or working out.
Yeah.
In each realm of your life. And one thing, I think I mentioned this to you the other day, I took a step back because I've been training a lot since I got here, a lot and real hard.
I mean, you've been training a lot, period, for you, like the last year, man.
Yeah. Years, actually, like years at this point. And I just took a break. I was like, you know what? My body's feeling a little banged up. You know, I've had this kind of nagging neck injury that's continually getting better, but still there, and has, you know, based on what I do from a physical standpoint, it changes. Yeah. But the last 2 weeks, I've just done a beach walk or rode my bike, like very light. And some days I've just done nothing, you know, and just let my body rest. And I've found a deep peace in that, of like, it's helped me reset what I want to do and kind of focus on, okay, let me take this time and plan what I want to start with again once I finish this rest in a few days. You know, but I'm realizing more and more is like the way I was going at jujitsu, and Professor Fabio, always a shout out. He told me, he was like, dude, I know you see all these guys come in here for 2-3 hours a day. He's like, and that's great. Go home and rest your body. Yeah. He's like, you're training hard. Go home and rest your body. Take a rest. Don't run on Sunday. You know, because I had a stretch that I think I worked out for 60 days straight. Damn. That's intense. And most of it was jujitsu 5 days a week. Yeah. 5 or 6 days a week. Yeah. And you're doing this 2 a days too. Yeah. Yeah. That was wild. That was mad. That was madness, man. Yeah. That also made me appreciate sleep, because I was never one. I was like, I can function off any level of sleep. And I pushed myself in that way for years, for probably over a decade. Yeah. And I truly appreciate sleep now. Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm the same way, man. I actually, fun story. Last night, I've been going to bed like 9 o'clock, right? And I wake up at 4 a.m. and I start working. Last night I went to bed, woke up at 3. So went to bed at 9, woke up at 3. Didn't feel all right, right? Tried to stay in bed. I woke up eventually. I got up at 4 o'clock. Went about doing my reading, my meditation, all this stuff. And then after a call with my girlfriend, I was like, you know what? I don't feel right, man. Like, I really just, something was off, right? Like, my body was telling me you need more rest. Because I'm paying extra attention to like everything about my being, right? So I was like, okay, well, I think I might need some more sleep, and I'm starving. Also, like, I've been under eating all week. So I'm like, let me just take a nap, right? So this is like maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock. I took like a 1.5 hour nap, and I got out of it, and I was like, I felt like a different person. Like, rest is so underrated. And the more like at least for me, the more aware you become of it, and of yourself, right? Like, the more you appreciate yourself with additional rest, and you appreciate the actual rest. I used to need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Now I think I can just do 6 to 7. But every once in a while I need my body, because I get adrenaline. I wake up amped up. It's weird. Like, I wake up, I'm like, go, it's go time. You know, I'm like, let's go. You have all these things you can do. The day's a blessing. And every morning I wake up with the same thing. Like, it is a blessing. I'm alive. This is awesome. Let's go do something amazing, right? Let's go be alive. But every once in a while, I'm like, I'm gonna sleep in and like get in 8 to 9 hours. Like, that's why I was in Connecticut, and with Alessia, and it was amazing. Like, I slept so much, bro, so much. Like, literally, she's like, I think that's the way the universe is telling you that you need more sleep and rest and leisure in your life. I'm like, I thought I was getting plenty, you know? But yeah, sleep is uber important. Yeah. As you have developed a more conscious and peaceful lifestyle, has there been embedded challenges in that process, like building the muscle of meditation, listening to your body? You know, how long have you been doing that? Because I think it's important for people to understand that, like, everyone's journey in that path is totally different.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, yes and no. So yes, in that I had challenges. So meditation, I already told you the first challenge was like I didn't think it would work. But once I got over that first hurdle and I realized it's just like doesn't matter how it feels in the moment, just keep doing it. Once I set my mind to actually doing the thing every day, then it became, to me, I made a commitment that I would never break. And once I make my mind up about something, I never, it doesn't change on a good, like, unless I realize I'm wrong, right? Like I'm saying, like I commit, I see it through. So meditation, that commitment, pulling it up, like doing it every day, no challenges in execution. I have had challenges even after I got good at meditation where I don't tap into that special place. Like I don't feel the connection with the divine, right? So that's usually when I'm not able to really come, like, what's the word? Calm my mind. I can't really get into relaxation, right? Because I have so many things going on in my head, which usually is just a sign that I have to do something else and execute something else, or maybe even just work out. But my challenge for my personal journey has been more the exercise front, because I think it's a very, like, you cannot understate the importance of exercise, right? And eating clean and healthy, because your body, you have one body, right? At least in this medium of existence. And it's easy for you to take it for granted, right? And I played basketball all my life. I was an athlete growing up until college, and you sit at a desk or you push water, and then eventually sit at a desk for 8 to 9 hours a day. And you're used to eating a certain amount of food because you're used to burning it all out, through exercise. I gained a ton of weight, man. I gained like 40 pounds overweight, and I struggled with my weight for a long time. And I finally, after I did ketosis, I think last year, 2 years ago, I brought it back down to like an acceptable weight. Like I lost 40 pounds, and I yo-yo between relatively good shape to relatively acceptable shape, right? It's like I'll put on 10 pounds and I'll lose 10 pounds easily. And that's just based on diet, and it's based on eating habits. Exercise habits, right? Like my ability to go outside and go for a run. COVID was not easy because I was getting in the best shape of my life. I was doing boxing 3-4 times a week, and I was running, twice a week. And I was really shredding, and I felt so good, man. And then gyms got shut down. And I've never been one to run outside. And then my gym in my building got shut down. So I couldn't go to the boxing class. I couldn't, go to the gym for the treadmill downstairs. And it took me 3 months to get off my ass and actually go outside for a run, because I realized I'm not burning energy and I'm going to go crazy. Right.
Yeah.
Like I still ate well, and I did like some like shadow boxing in the apartment, and I burned some calories, but compared, like, my watch tracks everything, like compared to what it was in, in February, right before things got crazy. I used to burn 4,000 calories a day, 3,800 to 4,000. And on an easy day, it'd be 3,600, right? Now I play basketball, which is my toughest workout. And even when I put in, like, I burn 600 calories in basketball because I'm sitting the rest of the time and I'm not moving around like we used to, right? Mm-hmm. I only end up burning like maximum 3,600 calories. And if I don't work out, I burn 2,900, 2,800. I eat less, but like the point is, like, it's hard. It's been a challenge for me, COVID, to maintain my healthy habits. But even, outside of the black swan that is COVID, just being consistent is not easy, right? It's not easy to be consistent because it requires discipline. Discipline, no one really, I'm the kind of person that usually likes to just do whatever I want to do, right? Like if I feel like going outside and drinking 5 beers and hanging out with my boys, I want to do that, right? That's not necessarily a good thing if you're trying to, lose weight or get in shape. So I could be impulsive, but I've worked really hard on the discipline front, right?
Yeah.
So I focus on what I like my outcomes. Every time I see myself deviating a little bit, I recalibrate and I sit down. I'm like, why am I doing this? The why is always very important, right? So I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I remember, and then I meditate on it, and then I snap back into it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's a highly valuable tool that not very many people focus on. It's just recalibrating with the why.
yeah.
And also just I've gone off the reservation on tracking stuff.
Yeah.
And what I've found, because I spent a lot of time tracking it, kind of similar to what you're doing right now. And I chose to pull back and just focus on listening to my body, right? And listening to my sort of the consciousness within.
Yeah.
And I've found that I haven't skipped a beat. If anything,
That's
I've
beautiful.
pushed even harder on the days that I felt like I needed to push, but from a very peaceful place, from a place of like the other day, I had a real intense soft sand run that from the first step, I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
This is going to be, it was hot. I felt like I was doing the thing. It's hot in here. I've been drinking enough water. The acoustics are off. I was going down that path. And I was like, I checked in with myself and just said, let me enjoy the process of non-enjoyment in this. Let me just appreciate it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And every step, I was like, okay. And none of them felt comfortable. And I got done and I was very thankful to be done, but I really enjoyed the process. And I think stopping tracking some of that stuff, the value of it in getting calibration is great, because then you start to understand your body more. There's also an element of letting go of some of that stuff once you realize that you have you've built those tools to manage it. And I wanted to ask you too, why did you choose ketosis? How did that come about?
Honestly, I tried all kinds of diets. Low fat, just restricting eating. And then one day, Matthew Lobach, shout out to Matt, a friend of ours from college, he mentioned it to me, and I read up on it. It sounded incredibly counterintuitive, but in science, like there's a lot of science behind it. That's what they were claiming. Again, you never know if that stuff is really good for you, right? All these diets, I'm not advocating for any of them, but it's basically you're eating a ton of fat. You make sure you eat a certain amount of protein based on your BMI, and then you keep your carbs at 30 grams net, right? So mostly for vegetables.
Wow.
And then you eat healthy fats, right? Like just a lot of fat. So it's basically like, it's similar to the carnivore diet, but you need to have a lot of fat. And then you eat some vegetables. And, I was like, this is actually an enjoyable eating. This is an enjoyable way to eat, right? Because it's tasty, it's satiating. But it was the first week of ketosis, your body goes into a little bit of a shock. You get like this, what they call a keto flu. And like, cause you're switching from burning glucose as fuel to burning ketones, which is the fat molecule. And that's a process, right? So, but then once you're in it, you feel like, I remember when I was doing ketosis, like I felt incredible, like really just clear, like no spikes in energy levels based on what you're eating, right? I just felt crystal clear minded. Apparently your brain burning fats is a good thing. Like if you get healthy fats into up to your brain as a source of energy, it really likes that. So that's the theory behind some of the benefits of ketosis. But yeah, it just felt really good, and like I could handle it. It was an easy thing for me to follow, and I saw results. Like within 2 weeks, I lost maybe like 10 pounds. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, it goes fast. You lose the water weight really quickly. So, but yeah, it was because Matt recommended it, and I was like, all right, I'll try it out. And then once I tried it, it worked for me. So once it worked for me, I stuck with it.
Yeah. Did you read anything on it, or you just,
Yeah.
was there like a resource that?
I mean, I went online and I just looked up ketogenic diet. I was doing CKD, which is the cyclical ketogenic diet,
Okay.
which is you basically stay in ketosis 6 days a week, and then one day you carb load, right?
Okay.
And that's usually good if you're heavy on the workout, right? Like people who are lifting weights. A lot of weightlifters and bodybuilders do this. They undergo ketosis, according to my reading. So I did a lot of research. I mean, just Matt said it, and I went and trust and verify.
Sure.
I verified what he said, and it seemed like there's a lot of support for it. And eventually, I stopped doing ketosis, cyclical ketogenic diet, and I went into full ketosis, which is no cycles, just no cheat days, none of that. And that's when I saw real results, right? Yeah, that was crazy because you can't really.
How did you feel?
Amazing. It was one of the greatest feelings ever. And I'm like, I wasn't good, right? I was not doing a good ketosis. The good ketosis, you're not eating peanut butter when you're hungry, right? You eat like you're really being smart about what you put in. Like I was just not eating carbs, but I was eating, unhealthy fats. Like I would
like what?
Stuff bacon down my mouth, right? Like I was.
That's not. I mean, look, a little bit of it is not bad,
But that's not it. Like I would have that. Like I'd have charcuterie just lying around, and I'm like, let's eat some of that. I'd be like, I'd eat pepperoni. I'd take pizza and just pull everything off the dough, and just stuff in my. I'm like,
that's good. That's good.
It's really tasty. I was like, I really loved ketosis. But then when I went to the doctor after losing all that weight, he's like, yeah, your cholesterol, bro, is sky high. So I was skinny fat. I got to a point where, you've heard that term, right?
I've been that at times.
Yeah. I was like, I lost all that weight. I was like super skinny looking, but I had like all the flab and I was not that much, but like my blood had a lot of cholesterol in it. Unlike to the point where they're like, you're close to needing medication or requiring serious intervention.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's like, what have you been doing? Like, why is it like, what have you changed in your diet? I'm like, I was in ketosis. He's like, were you doing the good kind or the bad kind? Actually, he didn't know what the fuck ketosis was, which is weird for a doctor. Well, maybe it's not. It's a nutritionist thing. But yeah, I then switched. I stopped doing ketosis. Like I just eat balanced, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you're fasting multiple. Do you have a schedule on it, or do you just fast when you want to?
I try to do intermittent fasting, right? Eat 16 hours and fast for 8, or rather, sorry, eat 8 hours and fast for 16, right?
Oh, I was like, damn, dude, that sounds good.
No, so intermittent fast, like I was doing that, but then when I don't know when it was, but I started waking up at 4 a.m. and it's hard, and I go to like, now I have no real routine when it comes to, I'm actually under eating. I'm not getting enough sustenance. So I'm trying to figure that out, but that's also because I haven't cooked in a long time, and but I'll sort that out next week. But generally speaking,
Creole rice
no real diet.
Sorry, where does Creole rice fit in on the keto?
Creole. First of all,
fried
Creole fried rice.
Sorry,
that is not keto. That is not keto. That is and it's not healthy because I'm using like Polska sausages, so kielbasa, which is like who knows what's in that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it's delicious, and you can't really, can't substitute that kind of bliss, man, for anything. No, I mean, I balance it out by eating a lot of vegetables. Whenever I eat Creole fried rice, I eat a lot of vegetables and, eat my yogurt, which people think is funny. I have like Greek yogurt with honey and
that's
walnuts.
Good.
It is.
Yeah.
But Subin said it's I don't know if I could say this. Oh, Subin is a woman. She says it's a bitch meal.
I mean, it's very metro.
Yeah. It's
very metro. Yeah.
Oh,
very
my
metro.
God. Yeah.
But it's good.
It's good, man. It's healthy. But yeah, I don't.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I don't really. I'm not focused on any specific like diet right now. Just more exercise, basketball. I'm playing basketball again, so.
That's got to feel good after almost 6 months of lockdown.
Oh yeah, man. And like you, like I have a hard time. The reason why I get injured, I tend to over push. Like I overdo it. I push myself a little too much sometimes. Last time I played, I literally I depleted everything in my system, and it took me like 2 days to feel like I actually felt unwell. I felt so worn. I mean, I imagine it's not the same as running a marathon, but people who come back from like long marathons, they say their body's like broken for a couple of days, right? And I imagine ultras, their bodies feel like shit for like weeks, right?
Dude, yeah.
I felt pretty drained because I just overdid it. Because basketball is so easy to push yourself. It's fun. There's like that feedback loop, right? You score, you get tired, but like you keep shooting, you keep running, and like there's like a positive reinforcement of scoring, so you keep doing it. Before you know it, you just your muscles are all worn. So, and I'm 36, man. So, and I'm not an athlete. I know you are 38, and what you're doing is incredible.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I just try to keep myself entertained. Yeah. You are, I mean, you've been, dude, from the first run that we took, what was that? About 2 years ago, over 2 years ago,
over
2.5 years ago. I
Yeah.
thought you were going to fucking die. Honestly, I was concerned about your health.
Bro, I hadn't ran in like 4 years. Like I had not done cardio because of my lower back. So that was like the first time, I was doing all that yoga. There's nothing wrong with yoga. It's just not really my thing.
Yeah. Well, everybody's different, right? Like there's some amount of stretching that's beneficial.
Yeah.
And I think I told you, I read Simple and Sinister, which is Pavel, I think it's Tutsalin. I can't pronounce his name.
Yeah, I know.
It's Strong First. He has it's two movements, literally. It's the swing and the Turkish get up with a kettlebell. That's it. There's a warm up that's 3 other movements, but it's very simple. And he has 2 basic stretches after that. And I've been incorporating that.
Yeah.
And that's it. I don't go, I mean, Anna's a certified yogi.
Yeah.
And I see the stuff she does and I'm like, that just seems wholly unnecessary for me. Right? My body doesn't move in that way.
Yeah.
But I do feel that I'm actually yearning to like stretch a little bit more.
I think I make, I jest. Yoga, I think if you really get into it and you do it right, it's just like meditating, right? Because yoga, the practice of yoga is to put your body into a state of meditation. You're moving into a meditation, right? That's what yoga is supposed to do. So it's like that, like I make jokes, but I think it's actually a really great thing. I'm already very flexible as an individual, right? So my muscles don't really need that much stretching. You can always do more.
Sure.
Right? I need more stiffness. I remember Vanita used to say like the 2 types of bodies in men. Vanita is our, I don't know have you spoken to her recently? By the way?
Sorry, it just cut out for a second.
Vanita, have you spoken to her recently?
I emailed her a couple months ago just to like check. I need to check in on her because she's helped me so much. I want to have her on the podcast. That's a great reminder.
Amazing, bro.
Yeah, I want to have her on the podcast.
But yeah, I was saying she's
our
physical therapist / spiritual healer.
Yeah,
physical healer.
That woman is incredible at what she does. She understands the human body in a totally different way.
Yeah. But I remember when I had my back problem, she's like, your body you have a very flexible body, right? And usually the 2 ends of the continuums are stiffness and strength and flexibility and less strength, right? So my core, like I'm very flexible, but my core is not there's less stiffness and there's less muscle there. So while some people have stronger trunks or cores, they need to focus more on stretching, right? Like David Goggins, for instance, right? I fall on the other side of the spectrum where I'm incredibly flexible, right? So I need to instead of doing stretches, I should be doing crunches, right? And core workouts, like doing planks. that's what would be beneficial to me. So, yeah, according to Vanita, anyway, that's what I remember.
I mean, she's generally pretty right about the human body. Hey, did you ever do Pilates with her?
Yeah, I mean, I still do.
You do?
My back is not as, I mean, I've obviously made great strides, but I still feel that, I don't feel the sciatica as much as I used to. But I think the psoas band, like there's like a whole band around my abdomen, right, and my back that it wraps around you and your hips. Like that, I sometimes feel it, especially after I put in a really tough workout, right? Because my core is not as strong as it should be for my body weight, right? And my size, like I'm big shouldered and I have a small waist, so like work out, bro. Like I should be doing weights and like doing crunches and like doing all that stuff, but I don't, because I'm not smart enough about that. I'm making that's one area where I should be smarter about. But I'd rather play basketball. I'd rather punch bags. Though boxing was getting me there. Like I remember that because it's all inclusive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in that movement, I don't know. There's something about the energetic intensity of basketball or boxing or running or jujitsu or something where you just, dude, the kettlebell workout is, and I read in the book, he talks about, only 1% of the people that read this book are going to make it to like this level of the basically like masters of the weight, because he prescribes the same weight for every human.
Yeah.
And the stack, he's like, you can achieve that with intense focus and it will be boring, and it is like, it's meditative for me. I also felt the need to mix in those runs because runs are meditative for me. That long run is a process of clearing my mind, clearing the energy. And I felt that I wasn't getting that from just the kettlebell swings.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been a weight guy, like weightlifting or anything like that. I mean, I don't know, playing sports growing up, it's all cardio, right? So my body's used to putting out a lot of energy through movement and explosive movement, right? So I've tried doing weights in college, outside of college. Like, you and I went to the gym, went to YMCA together and all that stuff. So did some weights. I've tried it here and there, but like, it doesn't resonate with me. And maybe that's because I never really fully consciously committed to it, right? And it could probably change my life. But I really resonate with explosive like exercise. So basketball, punching bags. Oh my God, I miss that, man.
Your eyes kind of freaked me out when you lit up like that.
I'm just saying, like the amount of energy I put out on like in boxing class, it was one of the most cathartic experiences I've ever had. Like it's so therapeutic. Like it's just like it's zen. But playing basketball, like moving fast and like putting all the energy out in a short burst, like interval training, high intensity interval bursts, for me, like work really well. Like that's the kind of, I feel good about those kind of workouts, right? And also like the efficiency aspect of it, like working out 45 minutes and burning 1,000 calories for me is great. Then I can move on to do something else instead of like being in the gym for 2 hours lifting weights, right?
Totally.
Different thing. It's not really my thing.
It's a different, it's a totally different experience. I do enjoy the balance of it. I'm trying to find that balance in the kettlebell versus to make the gains, because you feel it. The kettlebell, I would strongly recommend reading the book from the standpoint that I think you'll connect with the philosophy around it. And even just if you stay at the first level with just one kettlebell, it is by far the most total body functional strength training I've ever done. And I've done a pretty decent amount. Like I had a trainer at Rich Beretta in New York, that guy built the foundation of my strength for sure.
Yeah. Shout
out to Cedric. He really tested me in a lot of ways, and there has to be some functional component to the strength training for me. And I think it ties back to athletics, where it's like, if this doesn't have a practical component, I don't want to just do bench presses. It doesn't do anything for me in jiu-jitsu, Right. I want stuff that's functional. And I ended up connecting with guys who were mixed martial artists that had become trainers. And so they had a high level. When you tell them what you are doing this for, they would just customize things for me, for specifics, for
Right.
striking, for kicking, opening up your hips, strengthening your core,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, dude, kicking is like, it took me probably 4 months for my hips to open up of doing Muay Thai. And the only way through it was just doing Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just
No,
kicking.
that's a foreign movement if you're not used to doing it.
Yeah.
And if you're stiff, like if you're not really flexible, kicking is even more of a challenge, right?
For sure.
Yeah. I wanted to try kickboxing, and I was going to give it a shot at some point. Even jiu-jitsu, I'd be willing to put on a gi and roll around with a dude just for fun.
I think you would enjoy the
Technical aspects.
the philosophical, technical aspects of jiu-jitsu in a way that look, everybody has their own path to it or to something else or whatever. For me, the whole thing is meditative.
I bet.
The whole thing is just meditative and like letting go. And I know there's people that take notes and they write specific things. And there's like all these, I've seen these like crazy charts of like these systems of what you do.
Yeah.
And that's not how I enjoy it. I enjoy the free flow, and I Professor Fabio is like the master of just free flow. He's so elegant with that.
I remember.
It's incredible.
I came to your school and I saw you guys, and I saw Fabio with another big dude, like just going at it. I was like, man, that's a lot of energy.
It's a lot.
I mean, that takes a lot, man. And I watched some UFC, so I understand it, and I understand I can appreciate the technicality of it, right? Anything that's technical, I can appreciate. I never really got into baseball, but a lot of active athletes, like I call it active. I can't really call baseball an active sport, but like soccer, American football, basketball, anything where you're actively moving a lot. You could laugh at, baseball or golf as a sport, golf especially, but like I can appreciate the technicality and like the precision required on at the level that they're, the professional level. Even just as an amateur, like I tried playing golf and I was like, man, that's a tough sport. I mean, that's a tough game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tough game. Baseball, same thing. 100 miles an hour coming at you, and you have to be able to make a quick decision to swing.
Yeah. And
even to throw the balls the way they do, and the concentration that's required to be able to be effective, And when your success rate is at 33%, and that's considered exceptional, the psychology that's required to be able to play like that. For me, like, in basketball, I need to be at a 50% of, shooting percentage to be able to feel good. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, like, that's like a okay game. And then if I'm shooting 33%, then I'm like, sure. When I'm hitting 75%, that's a good game. Right.
Yeah.
And I know professionals are a different standard, but still, so I can appreciate technical sports or technical games or sports. Right. And jiu-jitsu, I understand, is exceptionally technical. Right.
Yeah.
And while also being incredibly primitive, it's like a warrior's game. Every sport in the end is fighting, right? It comes down to war. We're recreating war. So MMA is the purest form, I think. I mean, if you were to bring swords in, and then it was a battle to the death.
So human consciousness has moved past that point, but I can also appreciate the times when you watch Gladiator and the hair on the back of your neck is like fully raised.
I mean, dude, to go to war. I mean, I've never been to war, but I imagine that's the ultimate game. And humans have, from the beginning of time, been violent creatures, right? And they go to war. And what we did is create sports as recreation of war, right? So martial arts comes from well, not all of it, but like if you think about it, like the philosophy behind it is like defeat your opponent, right? War is kill your enemy, right?
Right.
Or take their oil.
Yeah. These days.
That's a joke.
Everything's evolved these days into
drones, technology.
Yeah, weird things.
Yeah.
And that, the world needs just a little bit more love. There's like, speaking of
true.
that, I'm going to switch into politics because this is episode number 13 and you and I are probably the two least political people that I know. So of course we should dive into politics head first.
Oh God.
But I was thinking about this. I was watching, I actually listened. I chose to listen to the debates as part of something that I'm doing with AJ. And man, dude, I just heard two fucking geriatric egos go at it the whole time. And I was like, man, what would it be like if an opponent stood up there and just took the higher consciousness? Like, do you think they would just completely flop because human civilization would be like, that person is weak?
Yes. Yes. Expand upon that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, let's go deep on this, dude. I think this is an important discussion for humans to have.
Yeah.
Like, why do you need someone to be the best at verbal spar? It's so fucking weird.
I don't know I don't think the point is to be the best at verbal sparring. I think the point is to make a case for your policy or your stance on matters that affect the people that you're supposed to be governing, right? And you're supposed to be representing. So I didn't actually catch the debate. I'm not American. I can't vote. I have no, I'm a beautiful observer of this amazing land. But yeah, so I didn't really watch it. And, but I did hear some sound bites, which were pretty entertaining, which shouldn't be entertaining because, people's lives, this kind of stuff affects people's lives. Right. And I am still an idealist, and I wish there was a way that everyone could get along. Right. I wish there was one party for all, and it was the party of love. #blessed. Seriously, like I wish that's what I feel like. Why not? You just ask, why can't we just have a little more love for each other, right? But I don't think that's human nature, man. Honestly, I think that's part of human nature, right? There's positive, negative, neutral energies in the universe. And love is one of the most beautiful, absolute, unconditional love is probably the purest, most positive energy out there. And you can get that with higher levels of consciousness and, as you get closer to enlightenment. But, we live in a world where there's a lot of pain and suffering, and there's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of charge, and instead of finding the higher road or turning the other cheek, people fight back, right? And I honestly don't know how you fix that, right? And I think until we all realize that we're one and we're all the same, and I mean that universally, I don't mean that just in the United States, right? Because international conflict is a real thing. But until we realize we're all one and we find the silver bullet for coexisting, as a human race, or let's just call it as consciousness, because even animal abuse, there's all kinds of messed up shit going on out there, right? Until we can get to a point where we're all, in agreement, or we can find happiness coexisting, I don't think shit's going to change. I don't think. I'm a little, I'm an idealist, but I'm also a realist, and I'm a little I feel a little bit of a negative charge. This is one of the areas where I still feel something about some of the, we're talking politics here, but I feel like all the stuff that happened after George Floyd's killing, the protests, the rioting, not everything is good, not everything is bad. I'm not going to say whether it's right or not, but I feel there's a lot of statistics that show social injustice towards people of color, of minorities, right? And they're supposed to be, after George Floyd, I thought there was going to be, everyone acted like there was going to be change, right? And I knew, the protests happened, and then we got quiet, right? People move on. Everyone on social media was posting shit, and now everyone's on social media posting selfies and stuff that they do. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying people move on, and we accept the norms. We go back to what was comfortable, right? And shining a light on injustice is not always comfortable, right? And having these kind of difficult conversations is not always comfortable. So we do avoid conflict, right? And that's a form of conflict, right? Having these difficult conversations and trying to initiate and actually implement change is not easy, because there are different positions to be held on the matter, right? Conservatives versus liberals, Democrats versus Republicans, right? And then you have the cool independents in between, or the moderates. But I'm like, I don't really know, man. Like, I actually don't. I'm not hopeful that there's going to be a convergence to love for the human race, unless there is a massive revolution. And I don't want that, because a massive revolution means bloodshed, right? That's what really takes real damage and real blood to be spilled to create George, like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, like all this stuff, like Zimmerman back, like all that stuff that happened. Like, that's when you start seeing a reaction. People tend to be reactive, and they react to what's in front of them, right? And whether or not you could say the news is helping or not, right? That's a different conversation. But we react to what we see, and then once we've reacted, we don't really do anything else. And then I think on one end there's a sense of those who are victims, if they really are victims, and I think they are. There's a sense of they feel like victims, and they can feel defenseless, right? It's harder to take control of your life, and then you start blaming and you play the victim, or you blame and you don't change your situation, right? Like, look what you did. You turned your life around, right? You come from humble means, and you come from you've had a challenging upbringing, right? And you took control of your life, right? And you made something out of it. Not everyone is as fortunate, right? And systematic racism is real. Oppression is real, in my opinion. This country was built on the backs of slaves, right? So there's something to be said about that, and the implications of slavery are still being felt, right? The ramifications of it are still being felt today, right? People in power want to stay in power. Like, I think it would take a revolution to really change shit. And I'm not a revolutionary, right? But I just feel like that's what it takes to really make long-lasting change. And it would take extreme measures or enlightenment. Yeah. A second wave of enlightenment. There's also that possibility, right?
Yeah.
If there's a second wave of enlightenment, then that would be a beautiful thing. Oh my God, I'd be so happy.
Yeah. I mean, I think look, everybody's opinions around what has happened are different, right? Based on the lens and the filter that you experience the world in.
Yeah.
And I've really processed that at a deeply human level over the last couple months. And I agree with you, because of one of the things that's been constantly coming up in my consciousness is like, what has to change to see that this system in its current form doesn't work? There's a lot of incredible things. I still believe that in America, you have the opportunity to be anything that you want today. That doesn't mean that it comes easily. It doesn't mean that it comes without discipline and effort and energy and hard work and all of the things that you can pick up any sort of book or person that has done something incredible, and that is within that is the basis of their story.
Yeah.
However, not every human they just don't have it in them to pursue that, right? Out of some need or without some level of work on themselves. And I feel that the area that we should be like, what would happen if we stopped investing in war and started investing in true education to enlighten society, right? And I think that is a worthy mission, however you can pursue that. And there's a number of ways. It doesn't have to be in politics. But what I see in our system is that it's evolved. It's taken the authoritative monarchy, patriarchy of old systems, and instead of one person, it's just created another class. And I think it's humans. It's human nature to create these class of like, now there's this very prominent political and business class in America. And we're living by that gospel of capitalism where we haven't kind of balanced it out with the human aspect of like, some people don't want to pursue careers over everything, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a believer that you can get it all.
Yeah.
And you can, depending on how you want your experience to be.
Right.
And there's just, I feel like we're just severely underinvested in education, like at a crisis level. And we were talking about this the other day on the crisis of modern fatherhood.
Yeah.
You know, and this is a fundamental thing. I mean, this is nature at its purest form. And there's a disruption in that we don't have to go into any of the reasons or whatever, but that problem permeates. It doesn't look at color. It doesn't look at anything. There's something going on in the universe where the family structure, which is kind of a nature, it's a natural structure, has been disrupted, and it's impacted different people differently.
Yeah.
But from everyone I've talked to since I've started the journey of trying to put this on paper in terms of writing a book and have conversations about it, I bring it up and I'm shocked constantly at how many people it's impacted. Like I bring it up and people are like, oh yeah, my father wasn't around either.
Yeah.
My mother wasn't around either. It's like, it's alarming in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a big deal. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a root cause. The absentee father, or the father was there but is not truly present, or does not want to be there. Right.
Sometimes I think that's even worse.
I know. Basically, it comes back to love, man. A father was not giving love, right, and guidance, especially to young boys, right? Because you create this downward spiral, right? It reinforces it. Like it just makes the next generation of men lesser men, if you will, right? Without judgment, like it makes them not complete, not mature, masculine. It doesn't if you want to just keep it masculine versus feminine, like, and then the polar opposite, the feminine, right? Their counterpart will see that negative or immature side, and they will also act that way, right? If you're not, and then you have children, then that cycle is repeated, and it just becomes, you have a lot of hurt in the world. You have a lot of issues, and kids who are growing up bullying kids, and then they teach their kids how to bully kids, and then the kids keep bullying kids or abusing. There's all kinds of problems that arise from that, right? And it's like and then you create irresponsible parenting, right? Or irresponsible children having kids when they shouldn't be having kids, right? Which leads to overpopulation. Like we're killing Mother Earth by overpopulating it, right? We've already been doing that. Overconsumption, overpopulation, right? As a species, like it's a problem, right? And I don't know the solution. I really don't. But I do think if we can teach love more than anything, why is that not taught in school, right? Got to be, love on like some of the good virtues. Like, why don't we focus on like teaching philosophy first, right? And what it means to be human, and then talk mathematics, right? Because I think one's a lot more valuable than the other. And I'm a math guy, and I'm not talking about math. So, yeah. But yeah. Yeah. It comes down to love, man. Like we don't have enough of it, and unconditional love. It's lacking now in today's world. And you see that in politics. You see that, close to home in the U.S. We're seeing it right now, right? One of the things, like, I'll say this openly, like, I'm not American, I can't vote, but I'm not a Trump fan as a human, right? Or his antics, whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't really appreciate him all that much, but I'm seeing people react, like, happily about him getting COVID, and it's shocking to me. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you're laughing, you're happy because somebody might die. I mean, that's not good, man.
Yeah.
Like, irrespective of, like, yeah, he could literally be the worst scum on earth, but you're playing to, if he were the worst scum on earth, you're playing to the level below that because you're happy he's sick and he might die. A disease that supposedly killed 2 million plus people, or 1 million plus, and 200 plus thousand, especially in the US, right? Like, to go above it, do not, like, be happy about somebody, irrespective if you hate that person. You should not be happy that you might, fall, you might die. You should never, sing praise in somebody's demise. If you want to talk karma, that's fucked up karma right there for you.
Yeah.
I was really shocked. I was like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised.
Because there's no love. The people, they're so charged.
Yeah.
There's so much.
Well, even the fact that like impacts, Anna brought it up this morning, and I was like, okay, I mean, I feel for him, and I hope, regardless of, like you said, regardless of what you think of a person. Yeah. I never want to wish ill on anyone.
Correct. Yeah.
But I also see that stuff like this impacting people in that way is like, I like what you said. It's like you're vibrating at a lower frequency than consciousness, and I'm not judging it.
Yeah.
It just is, right? That's the negativity in that is a reflection of an internal experience. And I've been there plenty of times to recognize that. Plenty.
Yeah. That's
and I'm thankful that I've done the work there is another frequency that you can choose to vibrate on. Yeah. And it's love, Yeah,
it's true. It's true.
It is love.
It is love. And it's a beautiful frequency.
It is.
I mean, it's seriously, look, and I was telling you this the other day, like, I actually enjoy vibrating between the two frequencies. Like, I like going down. I've been doing that a little bit lately. Like, I've been tapping into my primitive nature a little bit more, right? And I'll say some fucked up shit or provocative shit. I'll just say, just to fuck with, I'll do it, and I'll get angry. I'll let myself get angry, and I'll observe myself get angry. I'm like, interesting. Because I've been I've been on this journey of, like, deep self-reflection and meditation and self-actualization. And I was like, okay, well, let me, and spirituality, like, I really connect strongly with the divine, right? And I'm like, but let me not do that. Let me fight fire with fire. Like, if I get in an argument, let me just say my point, right? It was like, I'll push back and I'll fight. And, I won't, like, back down, right? Be an asshole. I'll be a dick. And I was, sorry, baby. Recently, right?
Full moon.
Yeah. But, I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? That's the human experience, right? The yin and yang exist within all, right? There's negative and positive energy, and serenity is the balance of the both, right? So I think it's okay to feel charge, but you have to recognize it, and you can't live it. You can't be it. You can experience it, but you can't you can't say, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. I just said, it sounds like a contradiction. I'm anti-Trump, or I don't like him. Trump does not affect who I am, right? Mm-hmm. However, policies that he puts in place, or the administration or the Congress, like, affect people's lives. So I understand how they can feel a certain way, and how I can feel a certain way. But it's important to look within and recognize that that's just me experiencing a certain feeling as part of being, as part of the human experience, right? And if you can detach from, man, this sounds like so, like, trippy. if you can detach from, I'm just like hearing myself telling this. I'm like, if if you can detach from that, the emotions and the experiences, and recognize that's just part of the moment passing, right? It's part of the flow of the universe. And you recognize that you as as consciousness, you as, the higher being, as just experiencing it. I think once you're able to start doing that, you choose whether or not you want to engage at a lower level, and life changes entirely. I mean, you have to master that skill, and you have to master that kind of presence, right? But the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the less, for example, you can get knocked off your spiritual path. Like, I know you're really good where you are, right? Like, it's really hard to tap, like, to come in, like somebody would have to slap you in the face for to mess with you, right? But
even that, I don't know if that would even bother me anymore.
You like turn the other cheek,
right? I mean, I may choke him out or try to, right?
Yeah.
But no, I know what you mean though. It's
yeah,
experience it, just experience, letting yourself experience it and not judge it.
Do you remember that at Date with Destiny, the Tony Robbins conference, right? Do you remember when he spoke of the 7 levels of consciousness? I don't remember the exact every level and every color and what they associated with, but I remember some of it. I remember there was beige, which is a primitive, destructive self, right? Mm-hmm. Just everything is a reaction without thinking. That's the first level of consciousness. Then there's red, where you're only about yourself, right? You're very egotistical. I think there was orange, where you're like super pragmatic and all about functionality. Then there was blue. I don't know if blue was before orange, where it's all about laws, rules, and regulation. And then religion fell under that, and and then there was green, where it's about loving earth, right? And then there was, I believe it was, I think it was yellow. Yeah, yellow, where you have the ability to go between every level. And then there was blue, or turquoise, which is divinity, right? Which is the highest level of consciousness. And I remember when he was talking about it, I was like, like he's like, what do you identify with? And I had a hard time answering that question for myself, because I really felt, like I can't, like I was like, he made a claim that Tony's point is that to really feel great in today's society, being able to tap into yellow is amazing, because you can go in between every level, and you can play whatever role you need to play to capitalize on the moment, so to speak, right? So I was like, that makes no sense to me, right? Because I was like, you would want to be turquoise or blue. You want to be always at the elevated space, like feeling in touch with God, so to speak. But I actually in the last couple of weeks, I started realizing yellow. Like, I feel like I'm in yellow. Like, I feel like I flow between states very easily now, right? And it's really, really beautiful, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that. It was before I even saw that, I had developed a belief that people's level of consciousness dictate their entire experience.
Yeah.
And I still believe that. And I agree with you. At the time, I remember identifying with, I could touch into yellow, but I was kind of like not there as as a home.
Yeah.
Like my daily experience.
Yeah.
And I've progressed into that higher level where I can experience the other things, but I never leave that turquoise, whatever. Yeah. And I think part of it is like just the understanding that is always there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is. And I've cut out labeling things and judging things. Yeah. And even as a parent, where, they're minor things, like little frustrations of like the kids not listening.
Right.
And when you let go of some of those things, you just stop labeling it, and there's zero charge. There's just love. And that doesn't mean that you don't elevate your voice or you don't do something. That's not what it means.
Yeah.
Right. And that you still have to be able to communicate with other levels of consciousness. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. When kids are on their own, they're literally in their own universe. Right.
Yeah.
Which is incredible to see.
They're developing, right? It's a beautiful, You've seen that journey.
Right? Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And
That's so cool.
it is. And I've found an even deeper, I talked to Steve G yesterday.
Nice.
And he was like, "How you doing, man?" And I just paused for a minute. I was like, I am big wave surfing in consciousness.
Oh God.
That's it, man. That's the only way I could describe it in that moment. You know, that's the way I can describe it right now.
I thought you were gonna say I'm big pimping.
Spending G's. No, it's I think people once they realize that it's just a choice and that you have the power within you to make that choice, it kind of goes full circle to what we were talking about earlier of like that inner journey is the most valuable journey that exists. And just the awareness of it, everyone's going to go through it at some point. Most people go through it right before they die.
Oh.
And because it doesn't occur to them until the possibility of life is put into question. And I think it's a beautiful thing to reflect, like what you said. You mentioned something earlier, like you wake up and you're just like grateful for life, you know?
I live in a state of gratitude, man. I mean, I'm not at your level. I'll be honest. Like I don't stay in that state of bliss all the time. That's also because I have I'm doing a lot. So I'm being extremely orange, right? Like I'm being hyper productive and I'm trying to like get a lot of shit done. Mm-hmm. And my motor is turning fast, right? So my body is moving and my mind is moving and my soul is not always able to just stay in a blissful state, right? So I'm observing all that. And I'm okay with it. I'm like, that's why I was saying, I'm like, I'll enjoy that ride because this is cool as well, right? But my awareness has like jumped up. But I can instantly, within a minute, just like stop and feel gratitude and energy rushes through me, right? Like I can, that's like I feel that in my soul. Like I'm thankful for being alive, for experiencing a life, right? And I'm very grateful. I don't need to feel anything else, right?
That's incredible.
You can't really feel if you find gratitude and you live in that space or you choose to live in that space, you can't really feel negative charge. Right? That's right. And I feel like gratitude is an easier thing to attain. That like a state of gratitude is easier to attain than a state of unconditional love or serenity or like one of the highest levels of like positive enlightenment, if you want, whatever. Because gratitude just requires that you stop and just look at what you have, and there's always something you can be grateful for, right? There's always something you can be thankful for, right? You just have to stop and look within, instead of like looking on your Instagram feed at this guy who has a Rolex and you don't know some shit, or this girl who's got a tighter butt than you. Like, I don't know, right? People look outwards more than they do look inward. And it's harder to live in a state of gratitude when you're just always looking outside. Because to be grateful, you need to look within and see what you have. And I spend way more time looking within than I do. I don't really give a shit about everyone else, what they have, what they don't have. Like I care about what people don't have in terms of like, equal opportunity to stuff and like social justice and blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to like what they live on a micro level, I don't really think about that. I don't really notice what people are doing. Like I'm looking within and I'll look what I can control. So yeah,
man, greatness comes from within.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful place to wrap this up. Episode number 13, man. Number 13. We gotta get that
going. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I love you, bro.
I love you.
I love you, man. I feel like I need to just give you a giant hug.
Well, I feel your cosmic juices, bro.
Yeah,
I'm sending it right back. Yeah, this is cool, man. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. This is
Absolutely.
we'll get the right interval down on this,
Yeah.
as things develop. I'm to do number 13 with anybody else would be wholly unacceptable.
I would judge you for that.
We're not friends anymore.
I don't love you no more.
Oh, no,
Meatloaf.
meatloaf.
Now.
So,
I want to
sorry
now.
for-
Fuck.
I do love you.
I do love you too, man. This is great.
All right. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Episode number 13 in the books. This is an amazing milestone. No episode number 13 shall exist without Cyril Morel properly going through meditation and the spiritual journey that he's been on for his whole life. He really has shared a lot and a number of takeaways. I mean, it's always a meditation when we talk. So I appreciate your time. You can find him on Instagram, the Creolito, and you can check him out in the universe in general. Stay tuned. He's going to be doing some very interesting things coming up in the future. We'll have him on the show again. Thank you guys for listening. And Chris Williams, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Boom. Out.